Jim, I see so many commercials now on erectile dysfunction. It's nuts. I mean, there's these quick fixes, there's supplements, of course, it's a little blue pill. Is it really that big of a deal?
It is, Caryn. And in fact, by the time a man is age 50, he has a 50% chance of having erectile dysfunction.
That's a lot.
It is, and it gets worse because for every decade of life after that, the risk goes up by about 10%. So if you think about what that means, by the time a man is 70, there's a 70% chance he's got erectile dysfunction. And you know, 70 is the new 50. That's still really young.
Well, yeah, it sure is. There's a lot of life to be had, right?
There is.
So what causes this?
Well, so for a man to attain and maintain an erection, there's several things that have to happen. We have to have nerve supply. We have to have hormones. We have to have the right emotional state. But probably most importantly, we have to have proper blood supply. And when we talk about blood supply to the penis, it's a situation where size does matter. Right?
Okay.
So the coronary artery that carries blood to our heart is about 3 to 4 times bigger than the artery that goes to the penis. So you can imagine if you start to get a little blockage in your heart artery, say 50%, you get that, you know, that's not enough to really cause symptoms, you know, chest pain and such as that.
Sure.
But you get that same amount of blockage in a much smaller artery, guess what?
Yeah.
Erectile dysfunction. And in fact, many people think now that erectile dysfunction is actually the canary in the coal mine for heart disease. It's a predictor of future heart disease because it's a sign you're starting to develop some of some blockage in your arteries.
So is there food that can help
Well, so there's foods that
prevent it, and then there's also foods
That's exactly right. So, you know, there are some other conditions like diabetes, which can affect the nerves, which is a foodborne illness.
Right, right.
We know too much alcohol, being on blood pressure medicine can increase the risk, which is also related to food. But we also know that food itself can contribute to erectile dysfunction.
Right.
So again, back to blood flow. To attain an erection, first of all, we have to dilate the blood vessels to get the blood in, and then we have to be able to constrict the blood vessels to keep the blood in. And that's how a man has an erection. And so you can imagine if something goes wrong with that process, the blood vessels don't dilate and constrict properly, we can't get the blood flow where it needs to be, and we can't keep it there. So that function of dilating the blood vessel, constricting the blood vessel, comes from what's called the endothelium. The endothelium is a single cell lining in the inside of our blood vessels.
So very small.
Exactly, and that's what controls that function. And there's foods that can interfere with that, like this, right? So when we eat foods that are high in fat, high in saturated fat, sugar, on and on and on, that can directly impair the blood vessel's ability to do what it's supposed to do.
Well, okay, so you're telling me that if a dude goes out and has maybe any one of these for lunch, let's say, their afternoon delight can turn into a bedroom nightmare.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, the good news is there's also foods that can help restore endothelial function.
Okay, good.
And the good news, the other amazing thing is those are also the same foods that lower your risk for heart disease in general. They lower blood pressure. They lower your risk for diabetes or help treat diabetes. So, but the foods that specifically help increase nitric oxide and improve that endothelial function.
The blood flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are things like green leafy vegetables, particularly arugula. We know that pomegranates, watermelon, dark chocolate. But probably,
sign me up.
Yeah, probably one of the most potent triggers of nitric oxide are actually beets. And what's interesting about beets is there's research that suggests that athletes who consume beets get about a 10% improvement in their endurance performance. It's the same thing, right? The more blood you can get to the muscle, the better you're going to be able to perform. Just like the more blood you can get to your penis, the better you're going to be able to perform.
Yeah.
So beets are really a great way to help. This is like nature's Viagra.
Yeah, well, that's what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay, so I have a great beet recipe. Let's get cooking and see what we can do. All right, so let's get this beet off the table and into the oven. I have a delicious recipe. Now, if you haven't seen a beet before, this is a pretty sizable one. It's a root vegetable, and what I like to do is take the skin off, usually with like a vegetable peeler beforehand, or you can roast it with the skin on and take the skin off afterwards. Doesn't really matter, but one thing, you want to make sure you do not eat the skin. Okay, so I'm wearing these gloves because beets have a tendency, at least these red beets, they will stain everything, your fingertips,
Right.
your clothing, your nice white kitchen if you have one. Make sure you are wearing dark clothing that you don't care about.
So, the other interesting thing is those same pigments, which turn your kitchen potentially to look like a crime scene,
Yeah.
can also show up in your urine and show up in your stool. So I've had patients come in all freaked out because, oh my God, I got blood in my stool, or I've got colon cancer. And the first thing I always ask, what did you have for dinner last night? Well, it was beets.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so just
yeah.
be aware that if you notice, red tinged urine or a little bit of red color to your stool a day after you eat a lot of beets, it's probably nothing to worry about.
Yeah, don't freak out.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're not going to be in trouble. Okay, so there's a lot of ways that you can, and you could just roast them just like this. They're delicious. They have a good amount of just natural sugars in them,
Right,
so they
right.
do caramelize a little bit, which is a nice thing. But I've just taken a vegetable peeler and peeled off the skin of the beet, and then chopped it into bite-sized pieces, and
Right.
that's what we have here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of jerk seasoning, and you can use whatever
Right.
seasoning you want. I just really like jerk seasoning, and there's so many different types. You can just buy a jerk seasoning, or you can make your own. I really like to put a good amount, I should say, of nutmeg, paprika, cumin, and a little bit of sugar in there
It has
too.
allspice, right?
It does have allspice in
Right,
it,
right.
yeah.
And it's
So-
a Jamaican, it's a Caribbean rub, and so
Yeah.
all that's where allspice comes out, if I recall.
So, these beets, even though they are very dense, I mean, this is a pretty hefty root vegetable, right? There is still a good amount of water in
Sure.
there, so you don't need any oil,
Right. As
right?
you can see, it's
Yep.
already sticking, right?
No oil. The natural water in there will help all the seasoning stick. And then we're just going to, as you see here, we have a parchment lined pan, and we are going to put these in the oven for 45 minutes at 375 degrees. And really do kind of make sure, as much as you can, you just want to do one layer thick, because we want these babies to roast evenly. And we'll get those in just a little bit. We will come back and enjoy this afternoon delight.
Right, there we go.
All right, we are coming in hot. Doesn't that smell great?
Smells amazing. I
Love
can't wait to try
these.
them,
All right, let's get some on your plate.
So, Caryn, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is a pretty simple recipe. What are some other ways you like to eat beets?
Sometimes I'll throw them into salads.
Right.
And usually sometimes as a side dish. Oh, you know what? This is something I've made before. You really liked it, the beet hummus.
Oh, wow, that's
Wasn't
amazing.
that
Yeah,
so
that
good?
was really good, really good. And, do you have to always cook the beets? Can you eat raw beets?
You can, personally, like if I'm going to eat a raw beet, it's usually like shaved. Sometimes you see that in like the
Sure,
salad bars.
Right.
But I really like them roasted because, again, that
Caramelizes,
caramelization
right.
from the
They do
heat.
have kind of an earthy flavor, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think I've had them as a small dice, in a salad,
Sure.
raw,
Yeah.
which I think is better. But some people don't like that earthy flavor, and cooking and caramelizing, like you said, it's amazing. And when you go to the store and you buy beets, oftentimes you'll see a big stalk.
Yeah,
With
pretty.
with pretty leaves. And most people, or a lot of people, just cut that off and throw them away. These beets actually came without the beet greens.
Yeah.
But those beet greens are incredibly healthy. In fact, one of the things we talk about, if you say, for example, you've got high blood pressure, which again can contribute to not being able to perform so well in the bedroom, one of the things, besides watching your salt intake, is increasing your potassium intake.
All right. Well, cheers to that.
Yeah.
Pretty good, huh? Yeah.
Really good. Feel like going and running 10 miles.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll leave it up to you.